push past these aspirational goals that we have into concrete numbers and really be intentional about doing that. And I think when you see you made the wonderful example of Ventec, kind of getting started with a city contract, getting a foot in the door, proving that this company was worth investment, and then moving up in the way that they did. That same type of life-changing opportunity is there for many of the minority-owned businesses that have been identified. But the key is making sure that they know how to engage in this process and that we are keeping the same criteria for them as we do with anyone else. And with that, it's incumbent upon the city, if we see a gap, which is there, that we break down those barriers and allow folks to really have that true opportunity. And in many ways, since these are tax dollars and we all pay them, make sure that there is a real equal opportunity and not any type of barriers for some businesses that other businesses don't have. So I think our role is key there, and we have to continue to work on where we are. We're not in the best position right now, obviously, but even when we start feeling good about ourselves, we have to continue to be intentional about that so that we don't get back to where we are now.
Absolutely. You make some very good points there, especially about the intentionality. So the city has recently become very deeply involved in several efforts to make it easier to do business, as you talked about, through its vendor and procurement processes. Yet one major obstacle that continues to drive supplier diversity conversations around the country and in Wichita it's come up is a lack of participation goals. So for example, I was able to speak with the state of Indiana. They have commissioner and deputy commissioners of supplier diversity, and Indiana as a state sets goals that several of their cities then also mirror for participation. So for example, in the construction industry, minorities, the goal for the minority spend is 7%. For the women's spend, it's 5%. In professional services, even the minority goal is 8%, for example. And then on top of that, those goals are set because every 5 years, the state of Indiana conducts a disparity study, and the cost for the disparity study could climb up to about $1 million, they told me. But they do a disparity study to track and measure how close in the past 5 years of that study, those goals have been met. How close are they to meeting them? And is the gap, if in instances it's not met, is it closing? The thing that also stood out about the state of Indiana specifically is that we always talk about what's the repercussions if you don't meet the goals. So they are able to potentially pull contracts from contractors who do not meet that participation goal. Now, they do say that they're able to negotiate and able to adjust and things like that contracts so that they haven't really had to pull, but just that opportunity of them being able to has, as they said, taken these goals from being aspirational to being more like a mandate. So I'm also speaking with the state of Missouri tomorrow. They do have goals as well. My question to you is, with that example in mind, what impact do you think having participation goals may have on creating a more equitable purchasing landscape for Black businesses? And is it worth the potential benefit to drive this conversation forward locally?
It's definitely worth it. But the goals must have, as you said, in the state of Indiana, some type of weight behind it. And if you don't have that, then people continue to stay in their comfort zones. And I think that's what we see here in Wichita. We're comfortable doing business with certain folks, and we don't open up those opportunities for others. If there was the threat of pulling those dollars from the main contractor or main business, then they're going to intentionally look to try to make sure they hit those goals. And we have to do a better job of that. And that's why I say we have to get away from aspirational. It's something I've said from the bench, and I continue to say behind the scenes that when it's aspirational, it's, oh, I hope we can do it, but if not, oh well. When there's a real threat of pulling those dollars or significantly reducing that and forcing you outside of your comfort zone to get to know other businesses who are also qualified, giving them an opportunity. You may have one of the best businesses in the city or in the region here, but you never gave them an opportunity because you weren't unfortunately forced to. You really shouldn't have to be, but that's where we are right now. So if we are doing that, that's really good information. I'll talk to our friends in the legislature as well. If we can get that type of state support and a real push behind it, I think we can open up many more opportunities for folks here. I see folks every day on social media who do the same work that we award hundreds of thousands of dollars to in the city. And my hope is to connect with all of them and make sure they're registered vendors, but the key then after that is making sure that these other folks know that supplier diversity matters and that we're watching. And if you won't extend that opportunity to someone else and be open and fair to it, these are tax dollars again that we all pay, then we need to find a way to take something back. And I think that's one of the things that was promised with the Wichita Water Partners, and one of the things that they've been trying to do here. But it's going to take a lot more. So conversations like this and conversations with my colleagues to make sure this type of thing continues to happen, and again, have some type of weight behind it, is what can help make the difference.
Absolutely. Thank you for weighing in on that. Also, making the difference is making sure that these companies are prepared. And so, Wayne, when we look at the Emerging Leaders course that I spoke about earlier, it really does work with executives to prepare them for opportunities such as contracting. And then with your 8A program with the SBA, you specifically work to help certify those businesses. In fact, going through that 8A program you shared with me opens access to set aside and sole source contract opportunities, just two of many resources the SBA offers. So, information from your office that did show in terms of the companies that are taking advantage of these resources, that participation seems to be a little bit low. What's your perspective about the local participation of Black-owned companies in your programs, and what is your agency working to do to help boost engagement?
Thank you. Thank you, Christina. Great question, great conversation. I want to correct something too while I have the opportunity. Ventec actually started literally as a vending machine company. And that's where the name came from. And then he, because of his background in law enforcement training,
right, he did transition to security.
So yeah, very, very amazing. And he's one of our amazing 8A success stories, Mr. Curtis Whitten.
That's right.
So, getting back to my perspective on the low participation in the program. This is something that I've observed really, I think, since my time with the SBA. I've been with the SBA for 12 years. And I have seen on a national level, the number of firms that participate in the 8A program continues to decline nationally. Big part of that was driven by probably here, maybe 15 years ago, an intensive effort to curb fraudulent firms that may have been taking advantage of the program, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, probably in that time frame, the certification process went from a local process where offices, district offices could literally review all the firm's information, ultimately make this certification decision. That went to more of a centralized process where we have two centers, East Coast, West Coast. And so the process that firms have to go through is a bit rigorous. I mean, it really is. They've got to submit their tax information, their legal structure documents. They have to meet the size standards, and so all of that is substantiated. They have to be socially disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged. There's a net worth threshold that they have to be underneath, which is $750,000 now and below on a personal net worth. So they have to go through that criteria. All of that to say, it really is a program that is situated for firms that have been in business for a few years and that have now successfully maybe even performed on a commercial contract, or perhaps even a government contract, local government, state government, that sort of thing. So the criteria makes it a little bit challenging for firms that may just be starting out and may not be quite ready for the program. All of that to say, we have intensively marketed the program. We've done a number of workshops, that sort of thing, intensive outreach. We kind of, in the last 6 months, just as an example, one of the things we've done is we've identified the landscape. You mentioned 182 firms that kind of fit the criteria in the area. We actually got that filtered down. We had about 100 firms, and then we got that filtered down to probably in the area of 50 firms or so. But all 100 we blasted information to. then followed up even with contacts, that sort of thing. Long and short of it, we probably have had out of that effort in the last 6 months, maybe less than 10 firms that have started the process. And you mentioned we've got 3 now that are very close. The effort, no doubt about it, and I have to give a little bit of a shout out here. We hired a marketing and outreach specialist by way of the CARES Act. We had funding to hire a marketing and outreach specialist here in the last 6 months. And he really has done an amazing job of helping and staying with that effort. And it's borne out, some momentum. So all of that said, yeah, I'm not happy about where we are locally with our portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
I want us to see more firms engage. And I believe we've taken steps to help us get there. But love to continue, this discussion.
Absolutely. And so even as an entity such as yours doing what you believe is necessary to be more proactive and really try to get out and engage those entrepreneurs, you're still the SBA. And perhaps some of the interaction experiences that entrepreneurs might be intimidated by the SBA, especially those who are younger in their business. So can you talk about what the SBA is doing to help entrepreneurs overcome the fear of approaching your organization for service? And some of it you have mentioned, but just share about what you're doing to help with that quote unquote intimidation factor, if it is there.
Well, our team collectively, we engage in outreach, across the board. We're working with stakeholders like the city of Wichita, Councilmember Johnson, as well as the city purchasing division, USD 259. We were part of this DBE committee that meets on a monthly basis. We have a number of stakeholders, the Kansas Department of Commerce, Office of Women and Minority Business, Rhonda Harris. We work very close with all of these stakeholders, coordinating our outreach efforts, trying to also work with our resource partners to make sure that their programming is offering maybe some of these lower level or beginner level courses, how to develop your business plan, how to develop a marketing plan, some of these things focusing around these core kind of competencies that all business owners need in order to be successful. How do we make it more friendly or more inviting to the public? That is a challenge. We are a federal agency, but in all of our communications, we really try to highlight not only the programs, but those successes, those individuals that the public could identify. We've got with our resource guide that we just produced for 2021, we've got one of our local business owners is on the cover of our resource guide, and it's Melanie Mcrae Miller. Yeah. She's got an amazing story, with Miller's Beans, and that's just one example. I think the more individuals can see themselves in those areas that they aspire to be in, the more we can highlight these successes, I think that's going to encourage and inspire more people to do it. It's there. I mean, the ecosystem, and I'm not kidding, the ecosystem I really believe is in place here, to support business growth and to support, participation in these programs. But, we're doing those things to inspire that participation.
I appreciate that answer and that inspiration and that aspiration to be successful when you see other successes. That's very important. And that definitely brings up the importance of networking. And so, Jonathan, when it comes to the Wichita Regional Chamber of Commerce, let me just ask real quickly about what percentage of chamber members are small businesses?
Thank you, Christina. So 87% of chamber members have fewer than 100 employees, and 50% of our members are somewhere between 3 and 24 employees. So the chamber is a small business organization. And when you look at some of the issues that small businesses have, I think there's that mindset of if I step away to think about or go to something that leads to training or anything like that, that's time away from me working my business.
Right.
And I think sometimes that mindset has to be shifted, where figuring out how your business is going to scale is working your business. Is working your business is not just standing there, serving a customer or, creating your product. It's also realizing how can you grow this business to be able to take advantage of the opportunities in the ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes our business owners haven't quite put themselves in the position to be able to do that for a variety of reasons.
Mm-hmm. Those are some really good points that you bring up. And like I said, through your department and the efforts of the diversity and inclusion team that the Chamber has, the Chamber prioritizing diversity and inclusion among some of its strategic priorities in the past couple of years, it's really kind of staking a claim coming in to create campaign space as it relates to working with minority-owned businesses. Talk to me about some of the efforts that you've undertaken and what are some of the major discoveries the Chamber has learned about working with Wichita's Black business population. And I will say it's okay if you come in this lane, because as Wayne talked about, that's what the work of a vibrant and supportive ecosystem, that's what it's about. Go ahead.
Clean that up very nicely. So, I think one of the things from a Chamber perspective that we recognized amongst ourselves is we had to do better about the data that we keep. Like before this year, we didn't have a demographic section on our application. So we added that this year to really try to get a better sense of what minority-owned businesses we have joining the Chamber. One of the other things that we've done is we've collaborated, like Christina said, with the Create campaign, the Hispanic Chamber and the Black Chamber, to better create synergy within our ecosystem. One of the things that we're very mindful of, and hats off to our CEO, Gary Plummer, is we've never wanted to come off as, okay, we're the big brother in this and we know better than everybody, so we're just going to tell you what to do. We want to be able to help utilize our resources to grow all levels of business across the ecosystem. So some of the things that we recognize is we have to do a better job of not just telling people why they need to participate in some of this programming, but connecting them and showing them the benefits of the program. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that we learned through COVID is when the PPP stuff came out, we had talked about, hey, you need to have banking relationships, you need to do this. You saw it firsthand when that happened, right? So how can we do a better job of creating those opportunities and giving those tangible examples so that our businesses understand, hey, they're not just saying this to say it. Right. This is actually a benefit to being a part of these types of networks. Additionally, also getting those connections to those larger opportunities so that when contracts come up, when different opportunities in the ecosystem are provided, you know who to call firsthand. It's not, I'm going through 4 different people to get to ultimately the one person I need to get to. You've already created those relationships and you can make that one-step phone call to be able to do that. So those are just a couple of things that we've been able to learn, and hopefully we can utilize moving forward with our other ecosystem partners to be able to help grow Black business in Wichita.
Absolutely. So it's one thing to be approachable for the entrepreneurs, but it's another thing to throw the significance of your agencies into areas that need assistance and leverage that connection. So specifically, we've talked a lot about supplier diversity. What is the Chamber doing around supplier diversity efforts to be able to help, again, be that champion too for small Black businesses?
So, one of the things that we are working with, is Brandon kind of mentioned it, and Wayne, we are really looking at how can we play our part in the ecosystem. So the Chamber, we view ourselves as the bridge between commerce and community. So how can we take those businesses that have relationships with the Create campaign, with the Hispanic Chamber, the Black Chamber, and connect them to resources through supplier diversity and things of that nature that we might have from a Chamber perspective? How can we get the right people in the room to have these conversations? What conversations need to be had? And that's something that a lot of times gets missed because sometimes larger organizations aren't quite connected to the smaller entities, and they just don't know. They think they do, but they have no idea. So we try to do our part to make sure we're doing our due diligence to bring up those opportunities in those focus areas to say, hey, we need to bring this to the table, because there are portions of our businesses in the city that are going through this, and we need to rectify some of this. We need to figure this out. So those are some of the things that we're doing from a supplier diversity standpoint, and including how do we create more pockets of synergy amongst our companies in our industries to diversify and to grow and scale businesses here locally.
That all sounds like important work, but let's be real. If people don't feel a connection, or if they don't feel a value of the chamber, then the work that you're doing, it can't touch them. But think about how powerful it can be when people feel that sense of belonging. And that's something for all of our organizations, Create Campaign included. That is why I definitely wanted to get Selena to be able to chime in, because I mean, just it seemed like almost out of nowhere, all of this momentum around this Facebook group, Wichita Area Black Dollars Matter, has just really become impressive in creating that network where people are on social media and things like that. But the thing that really impressed me about this group is sometimes we have people to just post and it becomes kind of like a dump all. But I didn't realize Selena was coaching people as well, helping them get connected to resources and things like that. So without even the backing of a huge agency, this social media group has become a major player. So I do want to ask Selena, you know, the bio statement for Wichita Area Black Dollars Matter reads that the group was created to positively promote Black businesses in Wichita and the surrounding area. And beyond that, I talked about you're doing business referrals, you're doing coaching, you're personally consulting. What trends are you noticing in your interactions with group members, and what do you believe is the highest value the group provides to participants?
First off, I want to say thank you, Christina, for inviting me. I feel honored. Well, what I would say about Wichita Area Black Dollars Matter, me and Katina created this group because when we did Adopt a Senior, we noticed that all the businesses that were giving donations, that were involved with adopting the seniors, there were just no Black businesses. It was probably 10% Black businesses. So we were like, wait a minute, we know that there has to be some Black businesses in the Wichita area. So what we are noticing is that they just don't know. You know, there are people out here that want to have businesses. You know, if when you go around and you talk with them and you ask them, you know, why are you not structured? Why do you not have a basic EIN number? Why do you not have business credit? Why do you not have a Duns and Bradstreet number? They just simply don't know the answer to that because they don't know. And a lot of them, you ask them, you know, the first thing they say is that they believe that a lot of the business entities in the Wichita area are silos. They believe that they're not invited to the table. They don't even know what table to ask to be invited to. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's just a matter of just lacking knowledge and understanding how you structure those businesses. I mean, I've went into businesses and, you know, there are people that don't even have a business structure, you know, that I've had to help them go online and create a business structure, but they're out here operating as an illegal business, basically. Yeah. And it's not because they want to, it's just from a lack of knowledge. They feel like that they don't know where to go. They feel like that the information is just not out there. A lot of times I believe that they may be intimidated by some of the bigger organizations like the SBA, the Chamber, the Black Chamber. A lot of them don't even know that we had a Black Chamber, you know, so it's just really a lack of knowledge.
Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that lack of knowledge, because it leads directly into the next question. So we did hear from Wayne earlier about his agency's work to kind of reach out to people in the chamber as well. But it seems like, you know, where people are going for their business information is very interesting. I don't know how many times I've seen here recently people flocking to Clubhouse so that they can be in chats with, you know, the movers and shakers, you know, in different areas or different cities, when right here, you know, we have the organizations right here, we have the same kind of resources as well that can get you the same knowledge. So as a result, what's becoming the replacement for business development service providers is Clubhouse, it's YouTube, Google, it may even be TikTok. So whether that information is right or wrong, people are flocking and needing to get information. So my question to you is, what do you think needs to happen? This is two parts to help improve how and where entrepreneurs get their information locally. And also the second part, how and where service partners look to deliver their services.
Well, I think that they just need to know where to get that information. I think it's just that they don't know where to get it. I think that major service providers have to have something to where they're inviting them to the table. You know, a lot of people are intimidated. You got to remember that a lot of the business entities that we have in Wichita, Kansas, they're not educated in owning and operating a business. A lot of them are self-starters.
Yeah.
A lot of them may not have a business degree. They're out here winging it, you know, and a lot of them are doing very well, but they could be doing a lot better if they had that backing, if they had the understanding that there's other contracts that they can get. I see so many businesses that work from sun up to sundown that don't even understand that if they went and got those same contracts with the government, they would probably be millionaires right now, but they don't know where to get that information, you know. So if there was some kind of platform to where it can be invited to where they could know where to go. As you know, I've introduced people to you. I've tagged you into posts and say, hey, why don't you get with Christina Long to see what she can do for you with your business entity? I mean, it's just a matter of being able to reach the people that are not normally involved in business entities in Wichita. And right now you have a lot of people that are just now starting. They have no idea. A lot of them just have no idea what they're doing. They want to do better. They want to make the money, but they don't know where to start, you know. And I think that when you are in those, we're talking about minority, right? So
we're talking about Black owned for this Black Business
so
Roundtable.
exactly. So the bottom line of it is our due diligence. It is our responsibility to let them know what it is that they need to know to succeed. They shouldn't feel like, well, I'm not part of that silo. I'm not a part of that table. So I can't dare go ask them for help or find out where I need to go or what I need to do to get money or funding or contracts. They shouldn't have to feel like that, you know, and a lot of them do. So they just don't ask. They'll just rather wing it than feel like, well, you know, I'm not smart enough. I can't dare go ask the chamber to help me to function out my business. So,
and you know, that is a failure on the parts of the ecosystem to not necessarily appear as approachable, but also it's a failure in our community to make it feel like we cannot go and ask. It has to be perfect before we do. Perfect has stunted so many businesses more than even a bad try. Perfect has stunted our businesses. And we do not have to wait until our businesses are perfect to go seek that help. We are all, anybody on this call, do people have to be perfect to come get your services? No.
No, not at all. That's an excellent point.
It is. But the time for this is so critical. Selena, thank you for your comments. The time is so critical. I don't know if people are really watching what's happening in our city with the upcoming redevelopment projects, the Wichita water treatment redevelopment, where Burns and McDonald, as Brandon had mentioned, they are looking actively for minority participation on this. They have a 7% goal. Not sure if it's going to get met with our Wichita area businesses. We got to work on that. But that is the largest capital improvement project in many years. Not only that, it's coming at the same time as the riverfront redevelopment, whatever might or might not happen with Century 2, we don't know. But then also the innovation campus and all of the construction activity that's been happening there. Also with the new project that Kay's pretty familiar with called University Village. We're at a critical juncture. We are at a critical juncture and we need to be able to participate. Kay, let's talk about Wichita State University. It's being deemed as a catalyst, an economic driver in our region. The transformation is undeniable, I'm sorry. But we're curious about the rate of minority business enterprises who have been able to benefit from all the activity on the construction side on the campus. Are you familiar, or can you share what data the university might have as it relates to that participation?
Yeah, like my colleagues before, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I feel like this is an august group of economic development folks. I'm a newbie in this space, so excited to be here and to learn and to share what it is that Wichita State is interested in. You're absolutely right. Our mission is to be an economic driver, not just for the city of Wichita and for Shocker neighborhood, which is the area in which we're located, District 1. Shout out to our leadership. But we want to be able to do that for South Central Kansas and the entire state of Kansas. The Innovation Campus has done a phenomenal job of bringing businesses to campus and to South Central Kansas. We're excited about that work. But one of the things that many people don't know is that Innovation Campus is privately developed land. Those are not state buildings. Those are not buildings that Wichita State has a whole lot of say in. If you look at any number of the partnership buildings, whether it's NetApp that's building on campus now, right there on the corner of 17th and Oliver, privately held and being developed by the NetApp organization, Deloitte, and their Smart Factory is another example of a privately held business. And so one of the things that's really difficult for us to be able to collect, in part, we've got some, as Jonathan noted with the chamber, we've got some areas where we've noted that we can make some improvements, but we can't necessarily go to Deloitte and ask them who they are doing business with. We can ask, but there's no rule that they have to share with us their business practices. And so oftentimes when we're dealing with private entities, we don't have access to that data. And so for those projects that are on Wichita proper state property, we certainly have a lot more latitude in that space. Those projects are bid through the state. And so we rely heavily on, Wayne mentioned Ms. Harris up in Topeka, who works with disadvantaged minority and women-owned businesses and the certification there. You've already alluded to the fact that there were only 14 agencies that had gone through the process to be certified. And so if we know that we're going through the state for our larger state projects, and that is the system that helps ensure that we have diversity in our development, we're not hitting the mark either, because that database only's got 14 people in it or 14 entities in it, and we're not doing a very good job in that space. And our system just hasn't allowed it. We have relied heavily on the state to help us in that regard, and that's not necessarily paid off and given us the results that we'd like to have.
That's real. And I appreciate the honesty. It's not something that people are just operating with and not trying to do better, but there is active efforts to be able to improve systems. Part of the issue, even if you have a system that collects demographic information and asks people specifically, if you are a minority or a Black-owned vendor, keeping it about the Black-owned Business Roundtable, Black-owned vendor, there's a sentiment that there's some companies that do not want to identify themselves as Black-owned businesses because there's a perception that the service and the quality is inferior. So even if you do have a system that captures that, if people choose not to report that, then how will we accurately be able to say what the spend is? How will we accurately be able to even say how many Black-owned businesses are there in the city of Wichita, which we cannot answer because the data collection does not track that in all instances. It's not accurate. So with that, we've talked about goals, possibly. Is Wichita State University in a position to set any participation goals for that on-campus activity that you mentioned?
We are. We're looking at the one you mentioned, the $1 million projects. Those projects that don't have to go through state bidding processes are things that we have a lot more latitude over. We've been paying quite a bit of attention to RFQs and our RFPs for projects. Very intentional review of what we're putting out to bid and the language there. And so we are, I don't want to say at the infant stages, but we're not taking anything for granted at this point. We're going all the way down to the bare bottom and looking at every layer to see if there are disadvantages that are built into our system. How do we abate those? And then how do we take university resources that, to Selena's point, are tucked within the side, the boundaries of Wichita State, that our community doesn't always feel like they have access to. So for example, Dean Jeremy Patterson and I just had a meeting with Wayne last week to talk about innovation and new ventures that encloses our School of Entrepreneurship, and how do we have stronger partnerships with his unit in order to get minority folks into the academic programs around innovation and innovative design and new ventures. How do we make sure that when we're participating in Startup Grind, or we have any number of entrepreneurial launch activities that come out of that particular unit, that there's a minority representation there. And so most of our goals right now are not necessarily about spend, it's about creating a system within the campus community that not only allows for, but then provides information to, and creates opportunity for better engagement. And then we can talk about the spend. At this point, we've not really done our complete due diligence on creating a system by which folks even have real good access.
Wow, that's so great. So what is your hope for University Village in the work and taking this into consideration?
Oh, absolutely. We're very excited about University Village, and we're in the process now of the internal process of writing the RFQ and those qualifications that a developer would need to be able to meet in order to be in business with us. We are putting into that particular document language about local and minority businesses and an experience. I want to make sure I get the language right. Experience with like communities. So not only are we interested in University Village, making sure that we've got a diversification of thought as it relates to spend and businesses, but diversity in what goes in those spaces. And so an increased level of transparency with our neighborhoods that surround our campus about what needs to be in University Village is a part of that work as well. And so this work really started under our former president, Jay Golden, and Dr. Rick Muma, who's serving as our interim president. This is a passion effort for him, something he takes very seriously. And so I'm really excited about the level of support at the highest level of our administration for us to make some corrective actions in places where we may have misstepped, and to elevate and enhance those areas where we've had some successes.
That's very inspiring, and I'm looking forward to see that language that's being written around minority business participation in University Village. You spoke about, and this is shifting to our last question for tonight before we do closing comments. Obviously, this topic requires more than an hour, and this is not the end of this discussion. We'll continue on, but you talked about when we are looking at private companies, private development. That is a key area as well. What onus do private companies have in order to help advance this? Because there's that saying, a rising tide floats all boats. All boats are lifted. So how do we engage that private sector? And there's reasons why, some talk about they do try to go out, they can't find, or they do bring on minority vendors, and perhaps the work isn't up to par. And there's other great examples of where primes bring on minority vendors and it works well. What can we learn from those instances too? But let me shift to our final question, because it bears a response about the ecosystem. The ecosystem is a fancy word for just saying the entrepreneurship community. When we look at the city of Wichita, Brandon, this one's to you. When we look at the city of Wichita, it talks about there is an economic development priority. There's a significance of economic development in the city of Wichita. However, the city in previous funding cycles have been funding different economic development activities individually. It was past practice to do so. But in the 2019-2020 budget cycle, the city decided to consolidate the economic development funding and delegate the responsibility to the Greater Wichita Partnership to the tune of about $550,000. And in city documents, it says the Greater Wichita Partnership would have the responsibility to implement the region's needs within the parameter of a plan called the Blueprint for Regional Economic Growth, or BREG. My question to you is, with that contract in place, consolidating the economic funds from the city of Wichita's perspective, then where does small business support show up in that regional economic development plan? So in the BREG plan, and how does that work reach Black-owned businesses, or does that plan focus elsewhere?
Great question. Before I answer that, I always say the rising tide, if you look at the ocean floor, there's trenches. Sometimes you have to be intentional and fill that trench before you get to the rest of the ocean floor to raise everyone else. And what we're talking about right now is filling that trench. When it comes to BREG, I wouldn't say from what I've seen that there's a lot of intentionality around minority-owned businesses. What the city had been doing, I think we consolidated 3 different initiatives under the partnership. And we actually, I think, are undoing some of that now, and bringing, I believe, WEBA outside of them. And I have to go back and look at everything else we're doing. So WEBA is that small business, Wichita Independent Business Association, is that effort. What we are doing now is looking at the data, what actual work is happening, how effective are these dollars and being spent. The Greater Wichita Partnership really looks at downtown and holistically how we can expand business opportunities in the region. They also looked at the riverfront. I think in this, we need to always be intentional about looking at Black-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses. That's a conversation that we're having now. And even looking at economic development funds, I mean, we really need to look towards that too. How can we intentionally bring more opportunity to our businesses of color and look at the work that they are doing versus what the partnership is looking at versus what BREG is looking at, and how do they plug in? Now, one part of BREG looks at it, diversifying our economy. What sectors are we not supporting? And tech sector is one of those. And there are some Black businesses here that are trying to get into tech. So what can we do to support those? And I think the more we look at where we are not being strong in the categories of BREG, we can see where African-American businesses can plug into that and grow. But again, it's breaking that down into a digestible way for people to understand. And then those of us who are sitting in roles of power look at how can, again, we make sure people know about it, it's accessible, and then identify the barriers that they may have. And then we need to work at removing those barriers for them so that they can be successful. That's an ongoing conversation, I think, that needs to continue to happen as we look at this plan. And right now, especially coming out of the pandemic and rebuilding our economy, what we've seen nationwide is cities are looking at equity right now. How do you build a stronger foundation for growth and address some of those generational issues that we've seen in Black and brown communities? And the city of Wichita is looking at that as well. But we have to be more intentional with our dollars and set those priorities. And again, having accountability talks like this and showing where we actually are, knowing that we need to do better. And hopefully folks watching right now that might have business opportunities will say, hey, I do that. How do I plug in? And then we can get you plugged in.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for that. And BREG is located, the plan itself is located on the Greater Wichita Partnership's website for those who wish to be able to see it. And support for small businesses, it is in there. But again, when we're talking about intentionality, considering the landscape that we're experiencing, then does that plan truly speak to Black-owned businesses? We're going to shift before our final comments. We cannot have conversations like this through the CREATE campaign without taking a moment to mention our partners and our sponsors who help us make the work happen. This work doesn't happen for free. It doesn't happen without cost. It doesn't happen without subject matter experts. And these organizations have really stepped up to roll up their sleeves and get in the trenches with us. So we want to thank and recognize each and every one of them for the ability to support the operations and the work that CREATE campaign is doing in a significant way, not just putting a logo on a flyer. They build with us. So what's next? In terms of opportunities that are next, you've heard about the Emerging Leaders Program. The SBA is on, definitely connect. If you feel like your business could benefit from that, the SBA is definitely a resource to be able to look at and connect with. Additionally, the city of Wichita will be hosting quarterly How to Do Business with the City conversations. And so we're going to have those trainings coming up virtually. Plug in. CREATE campaign is also continuing our workshops and trainings and things like that. Join the Wichita area Black Dollars Matter. Connect and be on the lookout for University Village information. SK is working and the university is working to drive that effort. And then Vice Mayor Johnson was able to get approved with the support of our city council, a small business fund, a small minority business fund that will be lifting and launching here in a couple of months. So be on the lookout for details like that. That's only a small portion. We will continue to drive these conversations forward. Again, also plug in with what the Wichita Regional Chamber of Commerce is doing. A lot is happening. So it's on us to be able to plug in and take advantage. I am going to open the floor for final comments. There is a great opportunity ahead of us. There is a great opportunity. And even though some of the data might be a little disappointing, it just means that there's a slate from which we can work with. We have to be real about where we are to be able to get authentic and sustainable answers to the data that's there. So we shouldn't shy away from the data, but we need to build from it. So with that, Selena, last words, final comments.
What I would like to say though, what I would like to challenge everybody here is to, especially the leaders that are over the SBA, the Chamber of Commerce, sometimes, even an invitation to those that don't look like we look or talk like we talk, a lot of times, inviting them, somebody that can disseminate the information to the masses is always a good idea, because you have some people that are intimidated and they're just not going to step up. But there are people that they do trust and that they will go to for that information. So if we could do a little bit better with that, I think it would help a lot.
Thank you for your truth. And thank you for all you do. Kay, you're up. Final thoughts for this portion of the conversation.
Again, excited to be here. Wichita State is intentionally stepping into this space to not only drive economics for our communities around the state of Kansas, but in the state of Kansas, in our neighborhood. And so really intentional about that. I was happy that you noted there is an opportunity coming up to be registered. Please check out our website, wichita.edu, doing business with Wichita State, and so that you can get registered and have contact for that information. I'd also encourage you to look at the Kansas Small Business Development Center housed at Wichita State, another resource that can help with our small businesses to get launched and to be successful.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. When you get over there, you're up next. Final thoughts.
Having a little technical difficulties here at the end, but I so appreciate this conversation. I would ask everyone to check out sba.gov, go to our website. We post our upcoming trainings. We've got the COVID relief out there, the various resources that we have in place. And we want to continue to offer programming that is reaching our Black-owned businesses, underserved communities. There's a lot of opportunity here, and business owners are literally missing opportunities if they're not certified when contracts are announced, when contract opportunities are announced. You literally can't even compete for it. So I would just leave the audience with this. Please reach out to us. We're here to help. We want to help walk you through the process, and I want to continue the conversation the next opportunity. So thank you so much, Christine.
Thank you so much. Jonathan?
Well, I want to thank my fellow panelists for the wonderful conversation. Christina, thank you for putting this on. I'm just going to encourage anyone who's watching you got to get out of your comfort zone. Nothing grows in your comfort zone. So find that advocate that Selena was talking about, whether it's Christina, Councilman Johnson, whoever, find that advocate. If you have questions and don't know who to go to, and they'll point you in the right direction. If you're interested at all in what the chamber can do and how the chamber can be beneficial, I put my email address in the comment section. Shoot me an email. I mean, I'm here to try to put people on. So again, nothing grows in the comfort zone. We want to help you grow and to be the best business owner that you can be. Thank you all again. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Johnson.
I just ditto to everything we've heard. Thank you, Christina, for putting this on. And, Jonathan is right. If we won't expand our comfort zone, there will be no growth. There's no testimony without a test. So you have to get out, try, reach out, and understand you may hear some no's, you may run into some barriers, but you keep pushing through that, and then success will be on the other side. And success really is taking those steps, one step at a time, whether you start off with a vending machine or you start off with a truck that backfires trying to build your dream. My grandfather started a multi-million-dollar, multi-state sanitation company with one truck, saving some money, and it became John H. Mcrae Sanitation in several states, making millions of dollars a year. And he had an 8th grade education. So if that tells you anything, you can do it too. You just got to work at it. So thank you all.
Thank you. And lastly, I will not belabor the point because I value starting on time and ending on time. We covered a lot. We're 2 minutes over, but I do want to say this, and that is continue to push, continue to challenge, extend yourself grace, extend us grace as well. There's a few laborers, it seems like, and there's a lot of work. And I know the Create campaign, we don't always get it right. There are phone calls and emails that I need to be able to get back to. We're a staff of one person, and that staff member is not me. So as we continue to build the capacity of our organizations to better serve, just understand we all are in this together. We all are in this together. And so let's hold one another accountable with grace and let us move forward to really create a beacon of Black business, because we are excellent. We are worth it, and it's going to take us all to be able to showcase the evidence of it. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I wish you all the best. Take care. Good night.